Okay, let's get to some of the surfacing stuff. We're just going to go into Photoshop for a quick sec here. First thing is, where do you get the basis for the surfaces? And the answer here is just like one of those photo CD-ROMs, like the Corel $15 photo CDs that have like 100 images on them. Is that what you used? Was it a Corel one?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, it was the Lizards Corel CD-ROM.
Yeah, the popular Lizards one. It's nice we live in a world where there is a Lizard CD-ROM when you need it. So, and again, this is used for the bump mapping, and it was also used a little bit for the surface. And this is the actual bump map, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is the actual bump map. Well, this is one of the bump maps, and that's an important point. I had two bump maps on the object.
But this is I just want to point out, this is the actual one.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, as scary as that is, this is the actual one. And this just points up the difference between how the bump map has to look, and this is fine. This looks good when it's mapped into an object. Right here, it looks like, you know,
yeah,
have your 3-year-old in Photoshop and ask him to make a dinosaur.
But, I mean, you can see the repetition all over the place with where I used the things. A lot of this was just, you know, pick a section of the skin where it's really apparent. You know, use a rubber stamp tool.
Photoshop has the ability real quickly and easily to rubber stamp from one area to another. How did you get the basic shape of the dinosaur there?
What I did is I rendered it from the side.
Right. So, again, stupid trick, go into Lightwave, render the dinosaur out from the side. Standard technique, this way you've got a version of the dinosaur that you can see, and this way you can map it on there properly.
Now this is the color bump I ended up doing for the map. And this one obviously looks a little bit more difficult, but it also looks very similar. This is where the stuff starts getting neat. Is that in Photoshop, for instance, these are not all as dangerously, you know, difficult as presumed. This is basically just cutting, pasting sections and reapplying it to the areas, you know, on top of the dinosaur. So I rendered out the dinosaur from the side, and I actually used the layers, and that's where it was really useful. If I add a new layer into Photoshop, this allows me to paint right on the other surface. So let's say I just rendered this out and this is the thing. I could you know, paint right on the surface.
And he's taken the layer and he's made it about 50% opaque. And I'm just taking the brush
and this doesn't seem all phenomenal yet, but because it's in layers and it's non-destructive, which means, you know, I haven't changed anything yet. If I wanted to move this, I can pick up this entire section and just move it, you know, and it saves it in the exact same thing. It hasn't actually done anything permanently. And this thing right here, which is normal down in the corner here, this has the ability to do a bunch of different things. So, for instance, I was able to add overlay or whatever, which sort of gives it this nice deep tone in here.
these are different ways to apply the layers. The layers, it's sort of what kind of ink you're using.
Yeah, so you're able to, you know, really come up with a bunch of different things and get really dirty looking crevices and all sorts of things like that. And you're able to move around the different images and sort of play with them, you know, in a way that you can create a bunch of different image maps from basically one first image map.
Did you do a bottom?
Sort of.
You did it for the chest, right?
Only where necessary.
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to get to. It's basically that, you know, if you're not going to see the bottom of its feet, whatever, they're not paying you to do that. So, but the top one was done. So let's talk about applying that, because this is a big question. You're going to go right in and...
I'm just positioning it. I'm going to render a frame first of all, so you can see what the object actually ended up looking like. I'm going to add another light just because it needs another light, you know.
And the reason you're adding another light, and just to point this out in general, is it's sort of a default lighting setup.
Yeah, there's a lighting setup I use to judge my models basically, because, and that's a 2-light setup. It's a basic setup from any kind of, you know, film standpoint, whatever. It's basically 2 lights, one from each side. One's a little bit softer than the other one. One gives you a nice hard edge, and the other one's sort of a nice soft one. One of the reasons that you sort of do that is because it gives you, because it's side-to-side lighting, it gives you like those shadows across the surface. It lets you see what the surface of the object's like and what the details are like. It really brings it out.
Right. Another side hint here. On this basic lighting setup, 100% light, 150% light from different sides. There's a way that we use this in space as well. There's a default lighting setup, and you can do this at home really easily. Just give it to you. It's a stupid trick, but worth doing. What we had as a default lighting setup was 2 distant lights, one 100% and one 50%. One was facing this way, the other was facing that way. And they were both parented to a null object, both of them. Now, because they're distant lights, their position doesn't make any difference, right? The distant light, whether it's here or here, it's just casting those beams in one direction, and that's all that matters. Everyone with me so far? So what we did was, if you wanted to change the lighting, you just rotated the null, and now you've got the 100% light going this way, the 50% light going this way. Rotate it again. Now the 100% light's going this way, the 50% light's going this way. And real quickly, you could get a still nice working variant of that light setup where it's more lit on one side and a little less lit on the other. Okay, Ken, what are you doing now?
Just render a frame out.
Okay. So you're mapping this on the side. What do you do around the top?
And this is one of the reasons, again, this is one of the reasons why I do things, you know, all sort of at once. You know, I end up starting the modeling, and at the same time I start the surfaces, and then you know, as soon as I get the rough shape of the model, I start the surfaces almost immediately. And the reason why is because when you start doing the surfacing, when you start breaking apart the surfaces and adding multiple textures, you have to do some more modeling. So you keep the whole process sort of going. Basically what I did is I first applied the side surface only. So I named this as just one single surface, or at least the skin was. So this was Allosaurus skin.
And just the side polygons or the sides and the top?
And then just the skin, the entire thing.
Yes.
And I did an automatic size on the whole thing. You know, so I did the map in there and automatically sized on it and it fit on there.
Show that.
So for instance, I'll just go in and rename it skin. I'm going to apply that to the whole surface. And that way, you know, when I render this from the side, I know exactly what, you know, the skin is. I usually just leave it a default white color or whatever. And I'll take all the other surfaces and have them you know, a different color so I don't get them confused. You know, I paint the map to fit the thing, and then I do an automatic size and planar Y. Now the problem is...
Show that. In surfacing, in the panel, went in.
Let me remove them first. Basically went in, planar image map, selected the image, and then in the x-axis I did an automatic size. And that basically will apply it, you know, in the direction on the object.
So the effect of this is this got it surfaced along the side there, right, Ken?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now the trick becomes, it also has to happen along the top, right?
Yes. Well, the trick is that it'll when you map it from the side, it's going to end up stretching across the top and the bottom. And that's a problem that people run into. So you can see it stretching across there. You can see it stretching a little bit across the top. It was definitely stretching across the top of the head. This is obviously the low-res model.
The problem is, because you're doing a planar map and it's not a completely flat object, is it basically takes the shape and starts pushing. If you picture the map going, there's a box, you put an image on there, that's great. But as soon as you get a shape that's weird, this part will be fine, but then these pixels will tend to be stretched along the side there, and it looks bad. So what do? And the short answer, Kenny?
Add another surface on top of that.
Right.
And the best way to do that, and this is the important thing, we've got a creature, and it's obviously got a top and a bottom. And if I do another planar image map, let's say, to cover up the top streaks, and I just apply it, it'll also stretch through across the bottom and everything. So that's the problem. So what I'm going to have to do is single out these surfaces, sort of add it on top. But since I automatically size this, I want to keep this exact surface on the, like, let's say I wanted to redo the top. I'd select the polygons on top, like so. And I want to apply them, again, I want to apply the exact same surface as the rest of the body so it blends in perfectly across here. And then only apply a map that would fit within here on the top. So what you end up doing is I go in here and rename this like skin top. And then again with the W is a nice thing because you can actually, just like the curves up on the top, I can select a surface, so I can go skin top and do the positive, and I'll select all the surfaces in that group. And Then what you do is you make a map that fits this surface right here only, and would cover up that, and then you apply it on top of there. But you apply the same surface. So I got my object now, and it's got the surface skin top in addition to skin. But since the skin was automatically sized and everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the same thing. One of the ways you can do that is just by rendering out a little preview here. Now obviously this doesn't look very good, but then I can go to the skin top, and I can click back on this ball, and it'll copy the surfaces back to the new surface I created. Now in that case, because I was creating it from the original surface, it would have had that on there anyways.
Okay.
But that's a good way of doing that.
Okay,
In addition to
let me
it.
just lay it down just to reiterate. All he's saying is he basically wants to copy exactly the same surface parameters from one surface name to another. And the way to do that is render it out. Then when you go over to click on the actual surface, this is a way of copying between surfaces. And again, it's really important because a lot of people don't. You can be using Lightweight for a while and not necessarily know that. But you can use that render preview to copy surface attributes from one to another.